The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sharon Dooley. I'm going to be the moderator for this session, and we have an interesting and somewhat unusual topic. We're going to be delving into the world of PowerShell, and I know personally I haven't been able to master PowerShell. It's all I can do to keep up with what goes on with Transact SQL. But it's a topic I'm interested in, and I'm looking forward to seeing Sander explain how to use it for something that's usually forgotten about. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Dell Software. They may have made it possible for us to have a raffle at every one of our meetings, and we are grateful for their support. We are one of many virtual chapters. We cover a lot of different aspects of SQL Server. If you see one on this list that interests you, just go to your past profile and check off that you want to receive information from that virtual chapter. So there are some, as you can see, some virtual chapters that present in foreign languages. This is not one of those. If you're not familiar with SQL Saturday, you should learn about it. It's a free one-day training event. They're all over the world, and you can go to SQLSaturday.com to find out what's in your neighborhood and find out when they're having their session and plan to attend. It's a whole day's training. It costs nothing except for lunch, and you don't have to eat the lunch. You can bring your own, and they're high-quality presentations, and you'll learn a tremendous amount. The only thing you'll be frustrated about is that there will be 3 things you want to hear in the same hour. It's almost time for the Past Business Analytics Conference. It's in San Jose, California at the beginning of May. And if you are going to do it, you should use the discount code BAVCDB and save $100 on your registration. I know it seems like it's a long way from now till October, but the past summit is coming up in October, and if you register now, you save money. The earlier you register, the less it costs. And so you have till the 17th of April, that's Sunday, to get a registration for $14.95. After that, it will go up to $17.95. And you can save $150 by using the discount code that is on this slide. And I just got this yesterday, and I will send it out in the next mailing for our second meeting this month. And most of you know where to find me, so if you need it before then, just drop me an email, dbavolunteer@sqlpass.org. This is a virtual chapter with no physical presence, but there are also local chapters, and they give you an opportunity for face-to-face networking. I know the one in my area has pizza and soda. It's always in the evening, so you can go after work. You can find out if there's one in your area at SQLpass.org. And if there isn't one and you want to start one, go for it. PASS will help you with everything that you need to do to set it up. PASS is an all-volunteer organization, and you can volunteer for whatever amount of time you want. You just go to your PASS profile and look at the volunteering section. And if you're not a member, please become one. This is an organization that is dedicated to a lot of training and has a lot of free opportunities. And now I'm going to turn the meeting over to Sander Stad. He's a DBA who's worked with SQL Server since SQL Server 7, and he's a PowerShell enthusiast, and he works at a company called Waypoint Analytical. And just give me a minute to get my PowerPoint to go away so that I can get back to the little widget. Okay, Sander, it's all yours.
Thank you. So let's start up my slides. You see my slide, Sharon? Okay. Welcome to documenting SQL Server with PowerShell. As Sharon mentioned, documenting is one of the things we don't like to do, and foremost it does cost a lot of time, and I'm going to show you a method that is way too easy and you don't have any reason not to anymore. And if you look at the picture, who recognizes this as how their documentation is at the moment? I worked with companies as a consultant. I would come in and ask the responsible person, like the DBA or the system administrator, to give me a list of all the database servers with their databases. And most of them didn't even have that list. And as a DBA, if you have a small environment, you know everything about your environment, but you don't document for yourself, but for other people. If you go on holiday or you win the lottery and you suddenly decide to quit, you don't want to have your colleagues in a heap of trouble. So I already got a little introduction. I'm Sander. I'm a SQL Server DBA. I'm an MCSE data platform. I have a blog where I regularly post stuff. I'm on Twitter, and if there are any questions about the presentation afterwards, please email me. I'm happy to answer any questions. Just give me the time to answer any, because I get a lot of email. So the agenda for today is why to document your servers. I already emphasized why, but a little bit. Why use PowerShell and ways to document, so how to save our information, ways to retrieve the information, and what to document, because there's so much information. So why document your servers? Like I mentioned, it's not just for yourself, it's for other people. But foremost, I like to create baselines. I want to know what the state of my machine is and was at a certain moment. I want to know what hardware was running. I want to know the addition. I want to know if I can build another machine just like the one I have now. So if I know all the information for my instance, I can rebuild it. Nowadays with virtual machines, You probably have a clone or anything else, but in the past we used to do it like this. I like to compare my servers. If I have a test environment and a production environment and suddenly my results are different, I want to know what the difference is between those servers to see what happened. And compare my databases. I'm fairly sure that nobody knows all the information about their databases, all the properties and stuff. So license and security audits. I have had so much trouble at former companies where my colleagues would just install an instance and we didn't have any licensing. If I know the edition and all the CPUs and the cores, and I can probably calculate if we have enough licenses and don't get in trouble. I'm from the Netherlands, and in the Netherlands Microsoft screens every company every 4 years, so you'll get in trouble otherwise. And security audits. I want to know if something changed in my logins or in my users. If you have any experience in the medical industry or the energy industry, you probably had to deal with certifications like ISO, the ISO certification. And as soon as you have that certification or you're in the transition to get it, you have to show you're in control of these kind of processes. So I really want to know about this. And foremost, I want to know all the information about my server for troubleshooting. The first question I ask is, if something comes up, what changed? If I don't know how what is in my instance, I want to know what changed. Maybe something changed with the memory. My colleague might have changed that setting for a particular reason. And that makes you to be in control of your environment. So why use PowerShell? If you don't know PowerShell yet, you're going to know it within the next couple of years, because it's the most powerful tool for Microsoft to automate your work. It's not only it's a shell, but also a programming language. But it's free. It's also free. You can download the Windows Management Framework in its version 5.0 at the moment from the Microsoft download page, and just install it and you have PowerShell 5.0. There's lots of info on the internet. There's no case I had to solve where either I didn't have the complete solution or a lead to the solution. So especially nowadays when this is hot, people tend to write a lot about it. So there's a lot of info to find about any case you want to put in. And it's easy to learn. If you have any background in scripting or programming, it's just syntax differences. That's also the biggest hurdle, because PowerShell tends to work a little bit different than other scripting languages. So like the equal signs and all those kind of things, you might fall into that trap. But if you know those caveats, you're pretty set to go. And it will only get bigger. Microsoft has seen the potential of PowerShell, and it will only get bigger for every application. There are some features in SharePoint you can't adjust in the GUI, but you have to use PowerShell. The Azure platform, there isn't a function in the GUI that can't be done with PowerShell. All the functionality in the GUI for Azure is in PowerShell. So how can we document our servers? So how to save that information? We can use text files, but for simple information, like I want to know all my databases for all servers. But if I have, for instance, my databases, OS information, my users, my logins, etc., for 50 instances, I would end up with 250 files. And that's a tedious task. But for simple information, it's really good to use. And PowerShell has good features to export to TXT or CSV for that instance. Excel is a good method. I can create a document for an instance, create all the tabs with all the information I want to save, and put a timestamp on it and save my information for later. Unfortunately, there isn't a standard feature in PowerShell to export to CSV or to Excel, but you can export to CSV. We have to import all that data again. There's a solution, either COM objects or the XLPSLib PowerShell library, which I'm going to demo later on. We can save our information in a database. If we can connect to a database and get the information, we can also save the information. Put a timestamp on it and you can see all the differences. You can even put alerting on it and make reports from it. I'm not going to talk about that in this presentation because it's a bigger thing than we're going to discuss right now. But it's really a good place to save your information. And the last one is XML. Now, XML is a good way to save your data in a formatted way. I haven't found a situation where I could use the XML, but it's there. I'm going to show you how to export that information to an XML file. So how can we retrieve the information? There are 3 ways we can do that. The first one is the SQL Server Management Objects, or SMO for short. The SMO is a collection of objects for programming all aspects for managing SQL Server. Think about the SQL Server Management Studio. That is built on SMO. So all the aspects, everything you see in the SQL Server Management Studio can be done with the SMO in PowerShell. We can use the SQL PS. SQL PS, the module, not the utility. The utility was back in SQL Server 2005. We had the SQL PS.exe to get all the information from SQL Server using PowerShell. That is replaced with the SQL PS module. And it's really easy. It's like going through a directory. You can just CD and then put in your instance and go to your databases like CD databases and do a dir to see all your databases from there. And as a DBA, I've always used SQL queries to get all my information. So that's a third option we can use to get everything we need. So what to document? SQL Server has so much information, you wouldn't know where to start. I categorized it in 4 different categories. First of all, I want to know the machine information. That consists of how much memory I have, the type of CPU, the amount of cores, OS information, like is it 32-bit or 64-bit. I want to know everything about disks. I want to know the size. I want to know how much free space is there. I want to know the name, etc., etc. I want to know information about the database engine. And then foremost, the configurations. I want to know the addition. I want to know the collation, and I want to know the logins. especially the configurations can be a thing you want to document, because if you work in a team of DBAs, people can change stuff around and you want to know if a change probably affected the performance of your server. The addition can help to find out if there are licensing issues, or if you have a query that suddenly doesn't work with newer features. The collation can be an important factor, because if your database is different in another collation, you could have an issue if you have to sort in TempDB. And of course the logins. See what logins have been there or have been added lately. I want to know about the databases. We'll have a database server without a database, so I want to know the size of the database, the name and the size of the database. I want to know the file configuration. If are there multiple data files? Do I know partitioning in there? The growth configuration. Do I have percentages instead of megabytes or kilobytes, if for that is? I want to know the collation. Like I said, if that differs from the server collation, I could have an issue if I want to sort in TempDB. I want to know about the users. Which users are in there? What roles do they have? All that stuff. And the last one, I want to know about the SQL Server agent. I want to know all the jobs and all the schedules. When do all the jobs run, etc., etc. So, demo time. Are there any questions from this until now?
Don't see any.
Okay, good. So, let's see what I can show. Is there a Windows PowerShell ISE visible? Sharon?
Yes, it is. I had my mic muted.
Okay. So the first demo, I'm going to show you how to export to a CSV into an XML file. The first thing I do is I clear the screen. I want to know I have a clear screen before I start anything. This is the way to load the SMO as an assembly. This is my local PC. I create a new server object. I like to create all variables for these kind of things. It's a programming thing. I could write this in a single line, but don't have to. I get all the databases, and if I execute this, I get this. I get a formatted table where I only select these properties and I format it, and this is my result. I already see some issues where I, of course, in my demo databases put in some stuff that is not usual. So I know I can get this information, but how do I export that? I execute the same statement, but instead of just formatting the table, I use the export CSV. I always include the no type information, and I want to input the delimiter. Otherwise I might have an issue with international settings. Like in the Netherlands we use a semicolon, but for this I want to just use a comma. And if I execute that and I open that file, it looks like this. All my information nicely formatted in a CSV file. It's just single information, but it's really fast. So I also mentioned how to do that to XML. Execute the same statement with a pipe sign, but then export to CLI XML. I don't want any clobber information. When I execute that, and it's already done, this is my result. And I don't like this XML export because it doesn't show the information like I want it to. I see probably a string and a boolean and another string and then a whole bunch of information I probably don't want. So, and this was the old version of exporting to XML. Since PowerShell version 2.0, we have a different method to export to XML, where I execute the same statement but then convert to XML and then save the information. And if I execute that, it looks like this. A lot less information, less columns. I get an object because every object returned is a PS custom object because I didn't define if it was an array or anything. I get the name, all the close, if it's true, the collation, compatibility, and the status. So, like I said, I didn't find a situation where I could use this, but you might want to. So I also mentioned we could export to Excel, and this is one I really like because I can export everything, all the information from a single instance to a single file. In the past we had to use COM objects. COM objects, if you're familiar with that, it's that slow. You have to wait for ages to write all the stuff to all the different columns, and you have to have Excel installed, and I don't want Excel installed on my server where I run from. So since a few years, Microsoft decided to use the Open XML format for all the documents in Office. That created a opportunity to export to an XML and create an Excel file. And somebody created something really special, which I really like, and that's the XLPSLib, which enables us to create an Excel file, write to the Excel file, and save it within seconds. It's really fast. So I again clear the screen, I load the SMO, I import the library, I define my instance, this I don't need, I create a server object, I get the databases, and again I want to show what information I'm exporting. Then I put in the row position. I want to start at row 1. I want to define the output and the output file name. I create a new Excel package. I set the author and I set the title. I create a new workbook and I get a new worksheet called databases, and I set the worksheet to number 1, the active worksheet. This is a piece of styling I got from the Codeplex website, where the XLPSLib can be downloaded from. I didn't want to change that much about it. I thought it was good as it was. But of course you can change anything around whenever you want. So the first thing I want to do is set my header. So I create a column with a name with the value auto close, collation, compatibility left on the status. These are the values I'm going to retrieve for all the databases. I increase the row position and I loop through my database object. And during that process I check whether I have a certain value. And if I have a sheet or a column where the value for auto close is true, I want to use the red because I don't like auto close. And otherwise, just use the normal style. That goes on and on until we want to save the file. So if we execute that, and it's already done, it looks like this. And this is in Dutch, this is true and this is false. You get the idea. The auto close is true, so I get a red mark. And one of the other checks I did, if the status of the database wasn't just normal, but it's normal and auto close. So if that what would be offline, it will be red too. So this is really a fast way to document your servers. I got my tab and even the author, my title in seconds. But we don't want to have one tab. We want to have more information. And a few weeks ago I wrote an article for Simple Talk, and that was to document your servers with PowerShell. And I created a script to do all that, and it does document all the stuff I mentioned earlier for all the servers. So you can download this code from the Simple Talk website. It's totally free. Use it. And I'm going to show you what it does for some of the functionality. I import the XLPS lib again with a force command if it doesn't work out. And this is another one. This is the PSQL lib. In the past few years I developed a library for PowerShell to get information from my instances or the host for an easy way to get all that information. I don't want to type things 4, 5, 6 times. I want to do it once and then create a function and then do it all the time. So this library can be downloaded from my blog. It's totally free. Use it because it's only going to get bigger. I'm going to extend it, and if you want any features in there, please email me. So I created a function to generate the documentation because I want to do this multiple times to make it easy for myself. It takes a server parameter, an instance, and a destination, so where I want to save the information. I first go to see if there is an instance name, either default or not. If it's default, I just want to use server name. Otherwise, I define the target with server/instance. I set a timestamp, the output file with the server name and the instance name with machine information in front of it with a timestamp to .xlsx. I set the row position and the tab position. Well, because I want to start up at the first row, at the first tab. Again, I want to create my Excel document, get a workbook, define some styling, and I save the information in 2 ways, either with vertical tables and horizontal tables. If it's a singular type of information, like OS information, we only have one OS, so then I would use vertical tables where the header will be on the left side. In the in the situation where I have the databases, I want to look through all the databases and have a complete list, so I would use a horizontal table with the header being on top. So if I get the host information, because we only have one host, that's an example for the vertical table. I check the length and I go row by row, setting the header name and then going through the data. Domain, domain, go to the next row, manufacturer, manufacturer, so on, so on. But if we go to the disk information, for instance, we can have multiple disks. I get the data for the disks, check if there is anything in there. I create the header with all the information I want, increase the row position, and then loop through all the disks. And because I'm a really lazy DBA, I don't want to do anything twice. I created a little text file with all my instances that looks like this. But at the moment, two names of servers which locate the same, are the same for this demo, work perfectly. And I would go through every item in there, sending the server name and the SQL Server instance name, and write it to the temp directory. And in the end, if I execute this, it looks like this. And this will take about 10 to 15 seconds per instance. So it goes through all the information I want, writes it to a file, and this is my result. So this is my file. I got the title, the name, and I've got all the tabs. I got the system information, I got a Dell Precision M3800, I got information about the operating system, the SQL services, disk information, instance configuration, databases, database files. Let's see what's in there. And I can see some issues with some things being percentages and different directories and stuff. It shouldn't be there. These are the things that make it clear that you have to change things around. My database users, all the users with their respective roles, and you can see all the, if there are multiple database roles for that user, it will add up. The login privileges, you can see my test user is a security admin and a DB creator. Wouldn't be a good situation in a production environment. Fortunately, this is just my laptop. The agent jobs, with all the information I want. So, a lot of stuff to go through. So that was about my demo. Whoa. Don't want to go through everything. So some resources. The Excel PowerShell library. If you're interested in writing to an Excel file, I advise you to go to that website and download this library. It's really easy to use and it's really intuitive. If you want to know more about PowerShell, PowerShell.org has a lot of information. And there is a good article to get started with PowerShell 3.0, which also applies for newer versions of PowerShell on the Microsoft Virtual Academy. The PowerShell library can be downloaded from my blog, and this is the link to the Simple Talk article that has the script I executed at the last part. So, are there any questions?
Yes, there are. 1 second, let me get them where I can get them. I promised them all that the scripts you showed, other than the ones you listed where to get them, will be available.
Of course.
The first question is, do the PowerShell scripts, such as the ones you're demoing, place a load on the SQL instances it's gathering data from?
It does create a little load, but it's like selecting data from using the SQL Server Management Studio. It's instant. You saw how fast the information was retrieved from my instance. That was locally, but I've done this for over 200 instances, and I was done within 15 minutes with some really large ones. So I don't think there is a lot of, I haven't seen any performance decrease when executing this. And you could always do this in at a time period which doesn't conflict with other processes. I would use this regularly. I would create a job which executes this, get my information refreshed like every month, see if anything changed. But I haven't seen any performance decrease from it when executing it.
Okay, another question. Can we get table or stored procedure definitions with SMO and PowerShell?
Can we get, so export the stored procedures using PowerShell? I think you can. Let me see if I can get that. So let's see if I have a, it is typing in a demo, so not really a thing I really like to do, but okay. I would have to go. I would have to see how to get that information. I think we can, and otherwise we can use a query to execute from PowerShell to execute that. It's not in this script right at the moment, but I think you can.
What if you don't have a complete list of your SQL servers? Could you be able to use any of your demo scripts to query the network for all SQL servers and their properties?
The scripts don't do that. They're not built for that. But I would either use the SQL ping or use, what was it called? Microsoft has a audit tool for your environment. What was it? The Microsoft Assessment and Planning Toolkit. That does a good job scanning through your network, and you can export that list to use for your to document your service. I would use those two tools.
Okay. There's also somebody who has responded to the question about the stored procedures and tables. There's a object in the SQL Server management system management object called Scripter, and that will allow scripting of any object. So you'd be able to build something to do it.
What's the question?
The question about stored procedures and tables, there's a scripter object in SMO that will do that.
Okay.
So
I have to look into that.
Okay. I'll send you the questions log so you'll have everything. How do you can you monitor log shipping with PowerShell?
Can you monitor log shipping? I've seen a presentation about that somewhere, so I think you can.
Is it possible to run this on a schedule, say every night?
It is. What I would do then is I would create a scheduled task which execute this this script, and then go through all my servers.
Okay. Can you provide a way to pull the security patches on a server? For instance, if I need to run a quality assurance on my servers, and if I need to know if the latest patches, for example, related to the .NET framework are installed.
I have done that before. You can query those kind of things from the, but you have to use other information than I have put in these scripts. You probably have to use WMI or other kinds of information, other kinds of libraries for that.
I think you're getting potential topics for a whole lot of blogs. In PowerShell 5, you can download and install the modules through PowerShell Gallery with this is just a statement, install -module XLPS lib. Another attendee wants to know how you compare to see if anything changed from one month to another.
I would just open the two documents, but if I would create a definite solution to compare all the information, I would probably create a solution where I would save it into a table and then do a select and see what differs.
And that's what Todd Corbett is asking for. Do you have a script that compares the results to look for changes?
No, I don't have that available. I usually go through the Excel sheets because I don't have that many instances at the moment.
The person who asked about log shipping asks if you can provide a link to where you could use it to monitor.
Yeah, send me an email and I will look it up. I have seen people do it. I haven't used log shipping for a long time, so I haven't done anything with PowerShell from that point on. But send me an email and I will get that information for you.
Okay, these things are things that are apparently commentary on one of the questions. Use port query on port 1434 maps tool, SQL map. Get hotfix can probably pull back security patches. Can we find information where SQL Server services reside in a cluster?
Can you see if I have had that question before. I would have to look that up. I think you can query the clustering the services and see if there's a clustering service running, and see if SQL Server clustering is installed. I think you can. I have to look into that.
Is the always-on availability group information included in the SQL PS, or is there some other module about the always-on availability group?
In the SMO, you can get always-on information. It's in there. It's in the SQL PS lib. There isn't a function to get always-on information, but there are features in the SMO which show always-on information, and otherwise use the SQL PS.
And Todd Corbett volunteers that he says, I have a PowerShell script that will find all servers in the Active Directory and look for SQL services on them. So Todd, if you could share it with either me or Sandra, that would be helpful, and I can share it with others.
Cool.
Okay, he's posted it in the question log, so I will save the questions log, as I usually do anyway. It's not very long. Okay, I think that's it for questions. Sandra, this has clearly generated a lot of excitement, and I thank you for being with us and sharing all this information. And as I said, you'll have plenty of things to do the blog, to do blogs for months. And I will send you the questions log, and you're going to send me the scripts and your PowerPoint, and I'm going to post them along with the recording.
Cool.
Okay.
I hope everybody got a chance to see a new way to document their servers. And as I mentioned, if there are any questions, please email me. I always want to know if you have any feedback. I want to know. So please send me any feedback or questions. I'm happy to answer any of them.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording and end the meeting.